We really need to clear something up in that video about Ukrainians being super privileged. Obviously, we're white presenting, and obviously on all paperwork, in all stores, people see us as white people. So sure, we do benefit from white privilege in the United States and in certain European countries. But the thing is, this is not about the United States. That video was not about the United States. Not everything in the world revolves around the United States. The whole idea that Ukrainians are only being helped and are only liked and have it easy because we're white people is unreasonable and ludicrous. White privilege did not save us from being literal slaves. They had cotton fields here, they had wheat fields in Ukraine. We were enslaved the exact same way as slavery worked here. Our white privilege didn't save us from multiple genocides. It did not save us from colonization. We've experienced some of the same things as any other nation that is not white. No, Ukrainians did not benefit from being white people. When people say things like, oh, Yemeni refugees have been waiting for 10 years. Yeah, you're again forgetting that the war in Ukraine has lasted 8 years before anybody blinked an eye. Nobody talked about us in the media. When they did, on a rare occasion, it was Nazis and civil war. Ukrainians did not qualify for asylum or refugee status anywhere because of our war. There were millions of displaced people in Ukraine during those 8 years. You guys act like the war started in 2022 and the world was like, oh my gosh, help, 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 Ukraine. The white people are struggling. There was 8 years of shit before that where nobody gave a fuck about us. A single, slightest fuck. When you say things like, oh, the world is only talking about Ukraine because you guys are white, you're also negating the effort that our president and his cabinet put into quite literally creating United 24 Media, which is a platform that consistently keeps screaming about everything that's happening. We created an awareness about the war in Ukraine platform. Our politicians constantly demand support. Our people literally created TikTok accounts with minimal English trying to keep the awareness going. People would stop like 9 months ago, 10 months ago, because the attention span of an average conflict is about a month. The weapons help that we're receiving has to do with the fact that we're quite literally stopping the Russian invasion and Russia from entering NATO. The US spent trillions of dollars every year on preparing to defend itself from Russia. And now it is annihilating Russia on the battlefield with no American lives lost, unless they're volunteers, for 3% of the yearly budget. That's why we're getting all the help. Now let's clarify the refugee situation. Yes, Ukrainians are getting work permits and things like that very fast. Now, after 8 years of not qualifying to be refugees to begin with, even though, again, there was an active war going on, whether you like it or not. Here's the reason why Europe is much more likely to grant Ukrainians ability to work and stuff like that. A, studies have shown that Ukrainians are less likely to ask for social welfare. 1. 2, the level of education in Ukraine is incredibly high, so our diplomas translate for specialties much easier than the diplomas of, say, Syria or Yemen. 3, in Ukraine, most kids learn English, German, and Ukrainian, also Russian. Some kids learn Spanish, some kids learn French, but you do that for 11 years of your schooling. By the time that you do get to, say, Germany, France, or Spain, you likely have the language quite a little bit covered. So it's easier to find employment. Most Ukrainians, again, according to polls, are planning on coming back to Ukraine. We're not asking for permanent residency, we're asking for temporary refugee status. Very different, because most people in other wars did not have their government on their side, and most people in other wars did not have the means to come back home, or did not want to come back home, or did not see being able to come back home in the near future. Is a very low maintenance workforce that already comes to these countries having the basics of language or with a medium knowledge of language, and having diplomas based on Bolognian system that are easily translatable in Europe. That's why Ukrainians are getting jobs. That's why Ukrainians are getting temporary protection easier. So it's a fantastic thing for your average government to have temporary workers who are bringing a lot to the economy and are not asking for a lot back. What I'm trying to say with this rant is that, yes, when a Ukrainian moves to a multicultural country, yes, they do acquire a white privilege. But that's irrelevant in this situation. Because in the context of Ukraine, in the context of invasions, in the context of all of this, it didn't work. Our white privilege didn't make the world look at us in 8 years of war. It did not save us from slavery. It did not save us from genocides. It did not save us from colonization. It did not save us from imperialism. It did not save us from any of that. So when you say Ukrainians are privileged and people are only helping you because you're white, you're literally negating all of our history of no one giving a fuck about us. We were still white then. You're negating the fact that our entire country bent over backwards with informational outreach. People like myself quit jobs specifically so no one forgets and specifically so the West helps. We created a whole freaking platform with our government. Our politicians started being active on social media, on Twitter, on stuff like that. The reason why this war is so discussed is because of Ukrainian people, is because of our effort, is because our politicians are on social media, is because we live in the age of TikTok. We were dismissed for almost a decade. We were still white then. You guys really, really, really need to make a distinction between having white privilege in a different country, which, again, most Ukrainians are not in a different country, and between being privileged and having white privilege in the context of like literally being white, being a white nation in Europe, because clearly we've been screwed times and times and times and times and again, just as much as people who aren't white. With that said, yes, on a level of like benefiting from white privilege overall in the United States, yes, white privilege. On a level of having white privilege as a nation in the war, no. You're literally discrediting everything that we've done and everything we've worked for, and you're also discrediting decades of people closing their eyes on everything that was happening to us by saying, oh, everyone's helping you because you're white people. We were white people this entire time. No one was helping us. It's irrelevant in the scenario in which you're trying to use it. Do you understand that?